Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show.
Welcome to one of the internet's best podcasts, where we dive deep into the lives of the extraordinary and fascinating people who leave an indelible mark on our world. Join us as we explore their captivating stories, remarkable achievements, and unique perspectives that shape history and inspire generations. Get ready to embark on a journey through the lives of inspiring people unlike any other.
Hello and welcome to the Avrum Rosensweig Show. My name is Avrum Rosensweig, and you are joining Parsha Prose with my dear friend and my colleague, Rabbi Shlomo Gomorrah. How are you, Rabbi?
Baruch Hashem, thank you very much. Very happy to be with you for another podcast. I got in the last week a few people who I just met. One I met like in a grocery store, and he said, Rabbi Gemara, I really like the Megillat Esther through your eyes. I said, it's not my eyes, but I shared it. And it's not about like the Megillat Esther or something that we say. I'm very happy that people listen and people find it interesting. And I hope that they will find interesting our program today too.
Yeah, I get many comments during the week, and I think the overall comment is that what we're doing here is very unique. That people don't, aren't able to hear about Torah, the Torah portion through the lens of novels and creativity outside of the Jewish body of work. People seem to really appreciate that. And it adds to their understanding of the Parsha. Now, we got a beautiful email this week from someone who knows you, and she mentioned that not only does she enjoy Parsha Prose, but she enjoys very much your comments about Jewish education. She is a Jewish educator herself, and she said there is very, very little out there on the internet having to do with chinuch, Jewish education. And she thought that we should sort of grow that a little bit, enhance it, expound upon it. And I thought that was a very good idea.
It is a very good idea. And you know what is interesting? It's in a way, it's quite sad that we get this comment, and I'll tell you why. Because actually they don't have to wait for Avrum and Shlomo Gemara to hear this idea about the Parsha. Over time, there is a disconnect between the Parsha and the life of people. And we try just to bridge it, right? We do something very, very simple. We say the Parsha come to teach us something very, very important. And people hear our podcast and they say, wow, that's something that I would like to hear more about. That's something that actually resonates with me, with my life. And it shows you that sometimes all the Divrei Torah that are like abundance over the internet don't touch the real chord in the soul that they're supposed to. And exactly the same about Jewish education, which is the most important thing. You know, I told you a few times, when Hashem said why he chose Abraham, he mentions education. Because there were great people like Avram, I believe. But with Avram, it was important, למען אשר יצווה את ביתו אחריו, because I know Abraham is going to make sure that his children follow his steps. And it's not something that, takes for granted, because many great people, unfortunately, their children don't follow their greatness. So by Abraham, Hashem saw that he made education the highest priority. My values are going to be the values of Yitzchak. The values of Yitzchak I'm going to teach him are going to be the values of Jacob. And that's exactly, by the way, what we are going to do in 2 weeks from now in the Seder night. What are we doing? We are making sure that our children are going to continue what we heard from our parents and grandparents. And I find it the most beautiful thing. And unfortunately, it's not done enough. And therefore, there is this yearning to discuss these issues because it's the most challenging area of our life, Jewish education. How we bridge between a modern world, modern thought, liberalism, modern values, and the values of our forefather. It's not simple, it's not easy, but this is our mission. All our troubles comes from inability to connect the two worlds. So yes, I think that we we should listen to this request and to think how we can give our part to this Jewish education discussions.
Rabbi, at the very core of Jewish education, as prescribed within the Torah itself, as you just quoted, uh, in simplest terms, as if I'm a neophyte just hearing about education for the first time, what is the Torah actually prescribing? Is it prescribing parents to sit with their children and instruct them, to explain to them what they know, what the Torah is telling them? On top of that, is it the rabbi? Is it the teacher that needs to be made part of the community? What, in essence, are we talking about when we say Jewish education?
You know, in the evolution of education, or devolution, I don't know how to call it, the Torah have a very clear site. Parents are responsible for the education of their children. Veshinantam levanecha. You have to teach your children. Because who is a better educator? Someone who comes, gets the salary, comes to the classroom, teach your child. He doesn't know him at all, what his special needs, what his soul is actually yearning for, or the parent who knows exactly their child. His advantages, his imagination, the thing that will inspire him. Obviously, it's a parent. And actually, Chazal are telling us that the invention of schools that they attribute to a Jewish person, a Kohen Gadol by the name Yoshua ben Gamla, who lived about 2,000 years ago, was on one hand a huge achievement and a revolution in the way of education, but at the same time, it was a failure. Now, the reason why schools were established in the Jewish community was that it was clear, it was a given, the Jewish children have to be educated. That was not even a question. Now, think about 2,000 years ago, many parents passed away when they were young. They had to work very, very hard. And our sages, as they walked from their house to the Beit Midrash, they looked around on the street and they saw kids with no parenting. And like to think that these kids are going to grow up and they will have kids, and if they are not educated, they will not be able to educate their children. So this Kohen Gadol, I guess, in one of his walks from his house in the old city to Beit HaMikdash, he said, this is impossible. We have to make sure that, 20% of our Jewish children who are just like roaming the streets, they must get education. And guess what? He established a school. And guess what? This school was a seed that all the schooling system that we know today was established.
Where is it discussed? Where's the school discussed?
What did they learn in school? I believe they learned the curriculum was very simple. They took the Sefer Torah, which was the only Sefer, the only book at the time, and they just went pasuk by pasuk and taught the students. But for this, they had to learn how to write. In order to understand many of the parshiot, they had to do some calculations. And even if they were not Talmidei Chachamim, they were educated. They were much better already from many people around them by the ability to communicate through writing and doing some basic math. So they could work on a higher positions than everyone else. That's explain why Jews until this very day excel in sciences, in many other areas, because this is going for many centuries that little kids has to get the best education. And they always were in advantage. It's not the Jewish money or anything else. It's the Jewish education that made the difference for millennia.
Yeah, so let's expand upon that a little bit. When people say, "Well, he's not educated," and that's been the challenge in his life or her life, or he is educated and therefore he's being able to shine. What is it about education, Rabbi, and more specifically Jewish education, that has allowed the Jewish people to survive and to grow?
The Jewish education in particular obviously enabled a small minority to survive. First of all, they knew what their values are. They learned about it. They discussed it in the classroom, although the classroom was most likely very different from what we have today with the computers, with libraries, and so on. But they knew what they stand for. They knew what are the rules that they cannot cross. They knew how to treat friends, other people, what happened if there is financial disputes. All was in the books. And education was not only for the personal benefit, but for the communal benefit and for everyone around. So this is about like Jewish survival, first of all. If you know who you are, it's much easier to function in the world, even when you are under pressure from the external world. Um, but more than that, once you start to learn, you really want to learn more and more and more. And I think this curiosity that could you could get answers which inspire even greater question. This is the, to me at least, the top of Jewish education. You learn how to ask questions. You know that when you know something, you have now to explore upon your knowledge new areas, and exponentially the knowledge is accumulated more and more.
But I mean, we're talking here about education with a value system, and this, in essence, what I'm saying is when you take a look at, let's say, Nazi Germany, there were a lot of judges and lawyers and doctors and extraordinarily educated individuals who were part of that awful time in history. So education alone is not enough. So when you speak about education, what is that added component that makes a man a good man?
Well, like any gift that God gave the human race, education can use to be something that inspire. And I guess that God gave this idea about education and the duty of education to create a better world. And like us, who took everything and sometimes destroyed it and corrupted it, that's exactly what happened to education as well. You can use a system of education against humanity itself, unfortunately. And that's exactly what happened in Germany. When you teach people, and again, it's about teaching. When you teach people to hate the other one, that you spread the ideas how you can kill people in the most sophisticated way to make like industries of death. Well, it doesn't make education by itself a bad thing. It makes the people who use education the very bad people. And by the way, even today, I think that the greatest mistake that Israel ever had, for example, in the Oslo Accord, was not making sure the education that is given to our enemy is changing. If you are going to take the books that students in Jenin or Nablus, or which is Shem, obviously, or in Gaza are learning, it's about hatred. It's about how the Jews are bad. And you cannot change the mindset of a nation of people if the education is corrupt. And unfortunately, even our leaders did not pay attention to something that important. If they would ask me or any other educator, they will tell you how education is a key to change a nation, the people. What worked very well for us can work for all societies. And unfortunately, it was not taken into account. And therefore, more than 20 years after the Oslo Accords, or already like 40 years, we are where we are because the education system taught people to hate Israel.
Rabbi, with all of that, a discussion about the body of education that we have, and we have a lot, in particular within the Jewish community. I've asked many people over the years how many teachers that they have, who they that are memorable, individuals who really, really encourage them to grow, to learn, to lomed mikulam, to learn from everybody. And the number is anywhere from 0 to 3. From time to time, I meet these young people.
That's good, actually. 3 people. Wow, that's amazing.
Okay, good. That's very positive. From time to time, you meet these young people, and you'll say, how many great teachers did you have? They'll say, many. Many, many. And you talk to this person more so, and you realize that indeed that person is the type of individual who learns from everybody. He learns from the guy who picks up the garbage. He learns from the superintendent in the building, etc. But my question to you is, with all the work and the time and the resources, the money that we have poured into education and the conferences that teachers go on and so on, why aren't there more better teachers?
That's a very hard question. I struggle with this question already more than 40 years. Where do you get a good teacher? But I want to say one thing. First of all teachers are good. They contribute something. But you
Yeah.
have this like unbelievable teacher that really inspired you. I think when people you talk about like great teachers, these are teachers that inspire their students. And students know, wow, like my life before entering his or her class and
Right.
my life after are not exactly the same. That's what they, I think, are great teachers. But let's think about all the teachers that allowed you to flow on the river of knowledge, the river of understanding. So sometimes they are not that significant, but they are the river. They are part of the river. But as I said, when you kayak over the river and you see like this is something like so beautiful, you take a picture because this is so unique. But let's not forget and not appreciate the flow of the river, even in the
Okay, good.
boring part of the river.
And for your experience, I'm just curious. Um, I'm assuming that most people go into teaching because they're passionate about it. They're passionate about children. They're passionate about sharing information and how to do it. Over time, do they have the resources to grow and to become great teachers? Are the resources there, or are we missing out on the key pieces that will make a person good turn into someone great?
Um, well, it depends on the school. I can tell you about Chad. This is my school today. We try to provide as many opportunities for professional development as we can because that's the key. That's absolutely the key. No one is born like a great teacher. Maybe one in a million. But you cannot base the system on this like individual. You have to train people, and like in any other area, you have a doctor. When he finish the medical school, he will be, he will know something. He grow up, he go to courses, he see cases, his experience, his knowledge, his discussion with colleagues. This will increase immensely the level of this doctor. And the same is true about teachers. It depends on the school. I would suggest, teachers go and visit other teachers, not to criticize, not to say what was not great, but what part of my job is go and to observe teachers. Usually they are young teachers for the first time and I have to write my observation. I have to tell you, I'm with a lot of experience in education, and every time I leave a classroom I learn something from the teacher, like a technique, a way to communicate with students, a way to present the materials from a different angle. I always find myself learning from teachers who are younger than me by 40 years, which is amazing. I find it the most inspiring part of this angle of my job. And yes, it's all come with professional development, like in any other subject. Maybe by teaching even more, because a teacher, especially these days, we uh, uh, making such a progress in many ways. I don't know if you ever heard about AI, but like
I have
AI
actually.
is
Yes. Thank you for asking. Yes.
so AI is not only for writing poetry. AI is the most powerful friend of the future teacher. I have no doubt about it.
Yes.
And giving feedback to students on the spot, preparing them for tests, showing them things that certain areas that they don't get at the first place. This is going to change, and if teachers are not going to take professional development in this area, they are going to be behind their students. That the a teacher has to know sometimes one lesson ahead of his student. This is not a good teacher, by the way, but if they don't if teachers are not going to learn thoroughly the opportunities in AI, they will be always one lesson behind their
Mhm,
students.
mhm. Rabbi, before we move into Parsha and Prose in a moment, I just want to ask you, um, perhaps you mentioned that every time you go into a classroom and you watch teachers, in particular those who are younger than you, that you learn something new, you learn a technique. Tell us one technique that jumps out at you that you've learned.
Yeah, I forgot to put the don't disturb button. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Where are
All right.
we?
So let me ask you the question again. You
Yes.
ready? Okay. Rabbi, you mentioned that when you go into classrooms that you very often learn techniques or always learn techniques from teachers, in particular those who are younger than you are. Tell us about one technique before we jump into Parsha and Prose that jumps out at you that you were enamored by.
Okay, I'll tell you about two classes actually that I saw, which are amazing. I was in an ethics class for grade 12. Now, usually this is like inspire very serious discussions about all kind of things, but here happened the most unexpected and most beautiful thing that I saw in a classroom from a teacher who is not like with dozens of years of experience. He was sitting on the side. He chose three students before the class to run the discussion. His job was very, very simple. He just recorded very briefly what was said and presented it afterwards on the board. So basically, he was not the star of the show, so to speak. He let students to lead the class, and it was a discussion was on such a high level that I was surprised that students in grade 12 are able to develop such a meaningful, profound, original thinking on ethical issue. And what the teacher showed me is how much power the students have if you just give them the opportunity. So this really, I wouldn't say changed my mind. I always knew that, but the way he ran the class, where he made all the tables in a circle and everyone could see the other one, everyone could relate to another one, everyone could even see the face of everyone else, gave such a depth into the class that I was amazingly like impressed with it. And I told the teacher that. And I suggested other teachers just to see such a beautiful class. It was just beautiful and inspiring. Another class, for example, it's actually in grade 9 that I saw, was that the entire class was based on a game. Like they had to analyze graphs. And normally like you take a book, you read, you go paragraph by paragraph. No, this time it was all about exploration. And they learned exactly what would they hear from the teacher, but they were completely engaged, like 100% engaged. Learn to work in a team because it was like groups of four. One was a leader, one was a reporter, one was a chief researcher. Just beautiful. that prepares them also to the world that they are going to enter later in life. Because today, work is not like individual working next to a desk, but really they work in teams. They have to learn how to
Yeah.
listen to each other. And all this was in this class. And this was a teacher, I don't think that she's like 25, 26 years old. And she led a master class.
I think what you're talking about is participation of the student rather than the teacher lecturing. You know, I remember Elon Musk a few years ago talked about how he educated his children. And I think he started up a school within his home. And basically what he said was, rather than teaching a child about the engine within a car, you know, diagrams and showing it in pictures and so on, he brought in an engine and he had the kids take it apart and then he had them put it back together. And I thought that was fascinating.
Listen to this, Avrum, and I show it to our listeners because I always wanted to do it, but I am a person of ideas. Sometimes I have more difficulty to apply them. And here is something that will make you lots of money and you can change the world, I believe, because I never did it. So I wanted always to establish a company that is called curiosity.com, exactly along the idea of Elon Musk, although it's the first time I read it, but I'm not surprised. The person he is, I'm not talking about policies and things like this, but like innovation and applying all kind of unbelievable ideas into reality is coming from this kind of education. So what was the idea? I wanted actually to be in touch with many factories, and you know, every factory has like 2%, 3% of all kind of devices that are not working or they are not happy with the final object, and to bring it to classes and to let students from kindergarten to grade 12 to try to fix them, to try to make like new machines from them. And again, I simply too much like consumed with my educational job. But I think if someone will revive this idea of curiosity.com,
Yeah.
I think it will be very successful because it's missing. It's missing. You know, today, like people all the time on their screen instead of doing something with their hands to feel the joy of creating something. I think it could improve education as well. And by the way,
Yeah. And I don't
it's
think we
well
should.
tied to the little print because that's exactly what he's talking about. Like how different is the
Beautiful.
world of children from the world of adults.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into that in 15 seconds. I just want to add that we're not only talking about education of young people, but it's education of everybody. I believe there should be much more adult education, but not only lecture series, because there's enough of those, but participatory, you know, conferences and places where people to go. Most recently, I actually did a series at a seniors home in Aurora, Ontario, which is about 40 minutes north of Toronto. And the average age in the room was probably about 80 years old. And it was on Tikkun Olam. And essentially how I went about it was giving the individuals who were in attendance ideas about Judaism and how Judaism approaches the concept of repairing the world. And I threw out ethical questions to them, things that they could grapple with. And I'll tell you something, Rabbi, once they settled in, once they became comfortable with their environment, you know, people are always, they don't want to be the first to comment.
First.
But when somebody else does, they dove right in. And I'll tell you something, there was passion in the room. There was exuberance. There was enthusiasm. There was even some anger. Some people looked at me and go, Avrum, don't be silly. Why would you even ask such a question? I go, I'm asking it because the Talmud asks it. That's why. So it's not just children, but it's education for adults as well, right?
So you are a frustrated teacher, I guess.
Yeah, I'm frustrated many things, actually.
Yeah. So it sounds like you could be an excellent teacher.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, it's the series that we're talking about here today is Parsha Prose. We want to thank everybody for their patience, by the way. The Rabbi and I love discussing issues of all types having to do with education, Israel, the Jewish people. And this is a major part of our series here, and we call it Shivim Panim. I want to dedicate this show, all of our shows really, to the Israel Defense Force, to the soldiers of Chayalim and Chayalot, to their parents, their grandparents, to all of their families. And of course, that we always have to have in our minds, we always have to think about the hostages, those who have not yet been released, and God willing, they should be released as soon as today, and God should watch over them. Okay, so the Parsha this week is Parsha Vayikra, and let me tell you a little bit about it. The Torah portion Vayikra, the third week, the weekly section in the book of Leviticus, of which we're starting right now, marks the beginning of a significant shift in the narrative of the Torah. It focuses primarily on the instructions given to the Jewish people regarding the various offerings and sacrifices to be made within the Mishkan, the tabernacle. The name Vayikra means, and he called, referring to God calling to Moses from the tent of meeting to communicate the sacred laws. In this portion, the focus is on the rituals that maintain the relationship between God and the people, with an emphasis on purity, repentance, and on atonement. It covers detailed instructions on offerings such as the Ola, a burnt offering, the Mincha, a grain offering, and the Shlamim, the peace offering, each symbolizing different aspects of devotion, gratitude, and reconciliation with God. This portion serves as the foundation for the priestly duties, setting the tone for the laws of holiness and the importance of ritual observance in the life of the Jewish people. Through Vayikra, the Torah introduces the idea that approaches the divine requires mindfulness, intention, and a deep sense of reverence. The novel that we're focusing on today is called The Little Prince, written by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. It's a timeless and enchanting novella that has captured the hearts of readers around the world since its publication in 1943. The story follows a young, otherworldly prince who travels from planet to planet, encountering a series of eccentric characters that challenge his understanding of the world and of himself. Through the prince's innocent yet profound observations, Saint-Exupéry explores themes of love, friendship, childhood, and the search for meaning in life. The novella is a beautiful blend of philosophical reflection and whimsical adventure, addressing the contrast between the simplicity of childhood and the complexities of adult life. Told through the eyes of a stranded aviator who befriends the little prince, the little prince invites readers of all ages to reconsider what truly matters in life and to see the world with a sense of wonder, with a sense of imagination. This is a story that transcends age and culture, offering wisdom on the importance of seeing with the heart, not just the eyes. Rabbi, I fell asleep to this book last night. I put it on my computer and I allowed it to play while I was lying in bed. And I have to tell you something, it is such a magnificent book. I love this partnership between Vayikra and the Little Prince. Tell me why you made that partnership.
This book teaches a lot of. There is lots of pieces of wisdom. You know how I became familiar with the book. When I was a teenager, I used to go to Bnei Akiva. In Israel, it's very different than here. Bnei Akiva was like a second home. Sometimes, actually, your home was a second home to Bnei Akiva. And we all gathered there, and they had one exceptional person who was Madrich. He was like the head of the group. And he started, I think, every activity, which was on Shabbat and in the middle of the week, with few quotes from The Little Prince. Did not even explain it, but he wanted us to think about it. And and when you have to think about something and you start to connect the dot, in the beginning it sounds like so strange and so what? But when you think about every sentence is a gem. Every sentence is a gem. And I was especially impressed with the discussion of the fox and the little prince, which is about relationship. Something, again, if we talk about education, we teach all the not important thing, formulas, and like how to write a paragraph. It's all very important, obviously. But we don't teach enough about how to develop real, well-rooted, and how to develop a relationship with other people. And it caused lots of troubles later, like how people treat other people, how they treat their spouse, how they treat their parent, because we never actually learn actively relationship. And the discussion between the little prince and the fox is all about relationship and how much you have to work for it. And this is a important thing, because most of our relationship starts with a smile, with a glance, with a very shallow connection, and not from investment into the relationship. And if you think about the whole book of Vayikra, which describes how to bring a sacrifice, all the details of each sacrifice, how to keep a certain level of purity, which is coming later. Uh, on the surface, it sounds so odd and bizarre sometimes, and like so much not connected to our life, especially when today you don't have a temple that you bring the korbanot, the sacrifice. But when you actually see the entire book through the lens of relationship with God, everything changes. Because the korban is not just a behemoth that has to be 3 years old or 1 year old, and it has to be a male or female. No, 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 no. This is not the story here. The story is about korban. In Hebrew means from the root of kuf resh bet, which is to come closer, lehit karev, to come closer to each other, to create this deep, profound relationship between one to another. In the case of God, it's relationship with God, which are very, very difficult to create. So I love to take this idea about relationship and to, through this lens, as we always do, to understand better the relationship with God that comes through the korban. The same relationship that the fox teaching him about, and the relationship that he had with the rose, right? I just find it very profound, and like attacking this issue from a very unexpected place, which to me is a true place.
Rabbi, I want you to riff on this a little bit. I want you to dive into that idea more so. Just tell us what you mean. What, firstly, about the relationship between the little prince and the fox, or the dialogue between them, and tell us more about korbanot and our relationship with God, because I'm telling you that we lose a lot of people to the parsha when we hit Vayikra, and I want to hear what you have to say, because I think you're exactly dead on. Tell us more about this.
Okay, so the fox is making a very important point, and he says there are thousands of foxes in the world. I'm not very, very special. And to be honest, he says to the little prince, I know that there are like hundreds of thousands of people in the world, and you are not very, very special. But if you manage to tame me, if you manage to make me your friend, then your life and my life are going to change forever. We are going to have something very unique about us that is created by you doing the investment in order to change me. Now, think about it. This is such a profound idea, because one of the greatest philosophical, existential problems of the modern world is like, who am I? Like, I'm so little. There are like billions of people in the world. What is my significance? And the fox said, well, I'll tell you what is your significance. Your significance starts when you start creating, investing, developing relationship with others. This is not just relationship. This is like a way to fill yourself with content and with meaning. And this will make you very, very special. You are not going to be the same person like 1 out of 7 billion people, but you are going to be yourself, and there will be no one else like you. So the world needs you because you are the only one from all the people in the world that are going to be you. And I think it's such a profound idea in terms of like how you watch a relationship. Relationships are not created. Relationship may be created in a little moment. They are conceived in a little moment, but if it's not developed, there is no relationship. And relationship with someone else are giving us such an important meaning. Now, let's think about our relationship with God is created in different ways. Sometimes we are in a terrible stress. Sometimes we are out of stress and we feel this need to thank God when we have the Korban Todah. We have like the feeling that we went too far and we have to bring a chatat, which is like a way to come closer to God after we betrayed or we just did not create this meaningful relationship with God. So the Torah in our Parsha and the next Parsha are giving us ways to invest into this relationship which are needed to every human being. We human beings are created, and this is also like something that is highlighted in the little prints, not only by what we see and what we know, but about our heart. He doesn't call it neshama. I will call it neshama. He call it just the heart. The things which are not tangible. Let's put it this way. And Hashem and the Torah gives us a way to bring the soul and the heart into play in creating this special relationship with God. We call it korbanot, but really korban is not a victim, as in modern Hebrew, like you call like a victim, you call it korban, and usually this is our meaning of korbanot. Like you take a poor animal, you slaughter it, and you did your job. You are okay now. You sin, you bring a korban chatat, like the sinning korban, and you are fine. No. That's not the story. The story is forming relationship when we are in a very low point. After we feel this betrayal that as human being we could achieve so much more and we didn't. And by the way, the meaning of, for example, chet in Hebrew, chet comes not from sin. Chet comes from missing the point, missing the target. So every chet is like we miss something. We did not fulfill our own potential and we want to fix it. And we can fix it by coming closer to God. And the way the Torah gave us is to see this animal as a medium that actually what happened to her actually is supposed to happen to us. And we bring the korban not to hurt the animal, but really to give kind of gift that make us closer to God. Okay?
Yeah, there's so much here to unfold. Just in a nutshell, what are korbanot today?
Where are korbanot today? Well, I think that we touched upon this point that actually religiosity, if you want to measure it, is you can measure it only by korbanot. It's very easy for a person who is rich and wealthy to give a few pennies to a poor person. But the question is, what about the time? What about the commitment to all the wonderful things that are around you? Is it just like the easy step of putting your hand in the wallet, which is beautiful? But do you come to the board meetings? Do you want like to expand? Do you want to reach the people who need you the most? Are you going to sacrifice your time and energies for something which is more than just like giving the bill of $100 or even more? So to be a real mensch, to be a real Jew, we have to sacrifice. And it's not animal that God wants us. And the Nevi'im repeat it again and again. Lo chafatzti bezevach elim. I'm not really. I'm not looking for the fat of the ram or the meat of the lamb. That's not what God needs. But this is expression to the need to take something that is dear to us, something that we care about, and to give it to others. And in this term, I would say that our life, especially today, we need to learn the parsha of korbanot because in every situation there is a different korban. Sometimes it's your ear that has to listen to someone else. Sometimes it's your legs that you have to walk to places that you don't want. Sometimes it's a good word to another person who need your encouragement and words. So yes, we have a lot to offer in terms of korbanot. Okay, not animals, but parts of our body. And remember, and this is an idea of the Ramban. The Ramban say the korban is just a symbol of ourselves. So we still give a korbanot.
Are we lacking today because we are not physically ensconcing ourselves in slaughtering an animal, putting the blood on the corners of the mizbeach or what have you?
It's very,
It
it's very
seems to me.
hard question. Listen, one of the nice thing I like about this podcast is the honesty that we both, I think, have to each other. The person who live in the 21st century, it's very difficult for me to find meaning in imaginary service when my ankles and my legs are going to be like half into blood of animals, and like shechting here and shechting there and throwing the blood on the mizbeach. Well, we live 2000 years away from this scenario, and in the modern world, it sounds very odd, to be honest with you, right? We like our dogs, we like our cats, we like our lamps, and it's very hard to connect ourselves to the whole issue of korbanot. So I would say, to me, as a rabbi, as a Jew, I want to go deeper into the meaning behind them. What the Torah actually is teaching us here. And I do believe that it's more than just the details about, like, if it's a male or female, if it's like 3 years old or 1 year old, if it has to be this kind of animal or another. Because again, there is the ideas are manifested in very tangible things in animal with these details. But the ideas are ideas, and they are not bound only to this animal or another. It's about, like, what is our religious duty as people towards God, and what, not only duty, how we can form this meaningful relationship between us and God.
It seems to me, Rabbi, tell me if I'm accurate here, that the reason why the Torah prescribes the slaughtering of animals, but not specifically so, there are korbanot that are not animals, correct?
There are korbanot. I wouldn't. Yeah, they are korbanot. Sometimes, you have a korbanot leve yored, that it's you can go according to your wealth, from a lamb to a bird, to sometimes, if you are even poorer than that, to just some flour, semolina or something like this. Yeah, so we have korbanot also from growing things, from oil, from wine, yes, and even for
And it's also predicated on the economic viability of that
in this
family or that
particular
person.
korban, because in many korbanot, like, it doesn't make a difference. Yeah.
Right, right. So, but my question is that it seems to me that the Torah prescribed the offering of animals, the slaughtering of animals, for many different reasons, but mostly to thank God. Excuse me, for what one might have done, to ask God for particular things. Why in that generation was the offering of an animal the key to our relationship with God, as you spelled it out, and today it's not?
I believe that most relationship manifested themselves in meals. You wanted your neighbor to be your friend. You wanted your family to be your, like, very, to feel the closeness of a family. Instead of many words, you just bring them to a good meal together. Which, by the way, consists until this very day. You go to a shul. What is shul? Shul is about kiddush and kaddish. Like, many
Right.
many people, I see them in shul, and they don't speak much to God, but in the kiddush they are enthusiastic member of the minyan. And I don't say it with one bit of criticism, by the way. I think it's a beautiful
Yes.
thing that bring Jews together. And if it's the herring of the cholent or the gefilte fish, it's all the same to me. Good relationship are created around good meal. That's a reality. That's how God created us. So a meal food is a way to bring people together. And I think that the Torah modeled the relationship with God, which is very different. But like, how do we associate with like throwing a party in, let's say, 3 or 4 thousand years ago? You take like a goat, you shecht it, and you invite everyone else. So here you bring the Kohanim, your family is there, people are eating, and many of the korbanot are just like a great barbecue. You bring them to the mizbeach, but major parts are going to the Kohanim, sometimes going to your family or to other people that you invite, especially like Korban Toda, that something happened to you and you want to thank God, and you bring family, then people who are just walking in Yerushalayim and say, listen, guys, I have a party. Oh, what happened? Let me tell you, like I was in a great danger. I was in the hospital, and Baruch Hashem, now I'm healthy, and I want to thank God, and everyone hear about it, and it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. So I do believe that the association many years ago with like making a party that create relationship. It's not for the sake of party, but creating relationship, and is around meal. And I think it's modeled to the Mikdash, where you bring like, a lamb, a goat, and you throw a party kind of.
Rabbi, the Torah portion focuses on purity and on holiness. How does the prince's view of the world and his relationships echo the idea of purity, especially in the way he cherishes his rose?
You know what? This is such a beautiful idea, question. I love the question, and as our listener already know, like you attack me with questions. I never prepared for it. And you know what? I'll tell you how I see purity, and maybe it's well connected to the story. What is purity? Purity to me is originality. The way we were born. Look at kids, they are so like innocent, so naive, so beautiful in their response. They will not have the shticks that we as adults learn, how to deceive people and to give the wrong impression and to say one thing in our mouth and feel the other one in the heart. This to me is purity. Purity means be original, be authentic, be yourself. And yes, the Torah is talking a lot about it, because the Torah wants us to be aware that many, many times we change perspective over our life. And we always have to strive to the beginning. And all purity is always associated with water. You go to the mikveh, and there are some other parts, but mikveh is something very, very important to it. Every time that you touch something which is defiled, something which is tameh, and think about it. You know what is mikveh? And Baruch Hashem, even today, before Rosh Hashanah, before Yom Kippur, if I have time, I will go even before Shabbat. Not too many times, unfortunately. I used to do it more. You go into the mikveh, you come outside. You know what does it mean to immerse into a mikveh and to go outside? It's the same process as you are born, because when you are born, you are in a mikveh, you are in the womb, full with liquids all around you, and you come out and you are a new person. So the mikveh is something very similar. Yeah? You immerse back into the womb of the mikveh, and you are reborn. And I think the whole process of tum'ah and ta'ara, this defilement and purity, comes to give us the opportunity to be reborn, to be who we were supposed to be, and not the people that we are. And that's how I see the whole story of Vayikra: restoring relationship, restoring ourselves.
Is there a lot of being reborn within Judaism?
I'm sorry?
Are there other examples of that concept of being reborn within Judaism?
I think the most noticeable one is the idea of teshuvah. The idea of teshuvah is also serves the same idea that you can change your course. You can teshuvah again. It's return. Return to what? To your original state. It's like a big reset button that you hit, and you can start anew, which is a beautiful idea. That yes, we stray, we go all kind of directions. That many times we betray the meaning of our existence, but we always have the ability to go back. So tshuva is in your mind, but the experience of going to a mikveh, the experience of bringing a korban, of doing something, I think is a very powerful, because it also have to influence your body. The same body that did things wrong have an opportunity to be reborn. I think it's a fascinating idea.
Okay, we are talking about Parsha Vayikra, and this is the very first Parsha in Sefer Vayikra, the book of Vayikra, and we are seeing it through the lens of the Little Prince, which really is quite a magnificent book. I studied it last night. I went online and I watched it on YouTube. You can do either or. It
Oh, I
was
didn't know
written
that.
by
It's oh,
yeah, it's so beautiful, Rabbi. One of the YouTube videos actually has a little child in the voice of the Little Prince, and I was so taken by it. I was honestly so emotional. I
this
had
is
tears in
very
my eyes.
interesting, because in a way it's against the spirit of the book. I just want to remind you one scene, which is a very beautiful one, when
Please.
can't remember who was it who asked him to make like a draw of a sheep, and he tried and he doesn't like it, and he doesn't like the other sketch and the other sketch and the other sketch, and at the end he write a box, he draw a box, and he said, you see, inside the box there is a sheep, and he said, oh, this is beautiful, now I understand what a sheep is. Now it's so amazing, because really the way I understand it is, you know what is the real sheep? The sheep that you have in mind, not the physical one that you see. And therefore, like, taking the Little Prince and to make it to a YouTube sounds to me like defeating its purpose in a way. You understand what I mean?
Mm. Yes, I do. It's also very interesting in the beginning of the book. The Little Prince draws a picture which adults look at and they say, "Oh, that's a hat."
Yeah.
The Little Prince says, "No, no, no. That's a boa constrictor having just eaten an elephant." But I just want to comment on the author for a moment, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. He loved flying, and in fact, that's what he did. But unfortunately, he wasn't a great pilot, so he would frequently crash airplanes. He actually went missing during the war on a reconnaissance flight in Africa. He was never found again. But eventually, before the war, actually became a postal pilot in Africa itself. He married Consuela Sunsin, and she was the one who people say was the rose in the
Mm.
book.
I didn't know
Um,
all this.
and
Very interesting.
yeah, it's beautiful stuff. There's a quote in the book about the rose. So he tended the flower, so too she began very quickly to torment him with her vanity, which was, if the truth be told, a little difficult to deal with. Um, there really is one great quote after another, and honestly, the thing that comes to mind is that, we talk about godless, we talk about greatness within the Jewish world. The sages, the rabbis, the learners, people who sit and learn all the time. But here you have this incredible example of an individual who himself had a certain wisdom, right? And it's like a Torah wisdom, right? And I think that's important to recognize that everybody is in the image of God. And clearly, this man was really quite something
It
special.
was something special, and the way he put these ideas is just magnificent. I will say one more thing. The more I think about it, in every art, it's not only important what the artist writes, but the way, like, we perceive a picture, a drawing, um, a, especially modern art. It's not so much about the artist, but about the viewer, about the person who watch it. And I think that what happened to the Little Prince is kind of miracle by itself, because if it would be written before, I'm not sure that it would gain the same popularity. But think about the years after it started to become very famous, like the 60s, the 70s. Um, these were years of change, of people looking for meaning that they could not find in the modern world, especially 2 decades after the Second World War, where people started to look for meaning for their life. I'm talking about the hippies and so on. And many of the quotes in this book, I think, just came like a glove to a hand in the way that people thought about authority, about seeing the inner side, the internal side of the world. So I think it was like a mutual process between the book and the people who read it, which gave even more meaning to the book itself. That I believe that he never saw that it's going to be like a cult book, and in a way, it is a cult. There are people who will read it again and again and again and find like new wisdom every time. So it was a special mixture between the artist and the readers of the book.
Very good. It's been translated into 350 different
Wow.
languages. It's
Wow.
something incredible. By the way, you talk about art and the perception of the viewer. I have a gift for you. I'm going to be I'm getting it framed, a picture that I painted, and I want to give it to you.
I love the
But
colors that you paint. You always like bring the word is very vivid through your painting, which I love.
Thank you, but I'm going to let you off the hook here, because here's how I give gifts of my paintings. I'm going to show it to you, and I say, Rabbi, and to your wife, I'm going to say, do you like this painting? And if you like it, then I'm going to give it to you as a gift. If you don't like it, you don't have to take it.
That's interesting, because sometimes you love something. Again, you see, that's another thing that we have to think about in light of reading the Little Prince. Is it good? Sometimes you go to a gallery and you are like you stand in front of a picture and you say, well, that's something that really amazing. And I had this experience recently when we went. I can't remember even where was it. I believe it was in LA, and we had a very good. We went to the Getty Museum, and they did something quite fascinating. They take people who are retirees, and they tell them, choose like 3 pictures that you like, and you are going to lead a tour in the Getty Museum, but you are going to talk about these pictures. And okay, we went, and there is a picture that, you know what, you go for 1 hour to the Getty, I would not pay too much attention. But the lady started to talk about this picture. And the more I stand there, the more I look into the detail, the more I learn and study the picture. Wow, this is something that deserves like learning. This is something that like it's much more impressive than what the eye met at the first glance. And this is a wonderful example to us as human beings. Many times we are struck with what we see and go ahead. We need the time to learn about people, to learn about situations, to learn about everything. By the way, I want to say, and this is very, very important before Pesach, the Haggadah starts with 2 words. Tse ulmad, go and learn. The Haggadah does not say go and tell the story. Although this is like by definition the mitzvah of the night of the Seder. Tse ulmad. Because a story can be a very beautiful one, but once you start to learn it, you become part of the story. And that's the purpose of the Seder night. And the same is about pictures. So it might be that you are going to bring me the picture, and the first glance it's going to be, nothing special. But I promise you one thing, I'm going to learn your picture.
You'll study it. Okay, fair enough, Rabbi. I like your honesty. Rabbi, I want to give you 2 quotes, one from the Torah, Vayikra, and one is from the Little Prince, and I want to see if you can make a heckish here, a link between the 2. Let's start with the Little Prince, and the quote is, "What is essential is invisible
Fantastic.
to the eye."
I love this quote. I just love it.
1 second. I also do. 1 second. And in Vayikra, it says, when anyone brings a grain offering to the Lord, their offering is to be of the finest flour. You see a
it looks
there?
very contradicting, right? Because here, like the Torah put an emphasis on the appearance of it. And actually, the quote from the Little Prince is much more like, okay, you cannot really see the real things. And to me, it just complete each other. And it brings us to what we discussed last week, like the connection between the inner things and the outer things. We live in a dual world, a world of the unseen and the world that we see and we touch and we feel and we sense. And to be a great human being is the ability to take the two worlds, the unseen, the invisible, and what we do and what we make and what we live to be one unit. That's the art of life, I would say. And I think that the Torah again said, bring the flower, bring the fine flower, but this is not the whole thing. There is relationship, and when you have relationship, you have to be the best of yourself and to bring to this relationship the best of yourself. So to me, it's not like two contradicting ideas. It's one idea. Form relationship with God. But this relationship needs the best of who you are. This is a solid, because we have to see it, we have to feel it, we have to see, oh, this is like the best of the best. Now let's apply it to myself. What is the best of myself? I'm going to bring it to the relationship with God.
Okay, let's do this again. The fox teaches the little prince the important lesson about responsibility. And we see this in a quote which reads, "You become responsible forever for what you have tamed," right? And then in the Parsha, we read, "The priest shall bring it to the altar and turn it into smoke on the altar as a burnt offering." It's a fascinating concept that what you tame, you are forever responsible
I
for.
think it's a very profound thing, and it's very, very true. um, which tells us about the huge meaning of our life. We become responsible for what we do, and the achievement that we do, and also the failures we do. Um, and it's a very Jewish idea, with no question that, unlike many other religions, that everything comes from God and everything, like, you just have to accept in a certain way. We always believe that no, 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 it's what we are going to bring to this relationship. This is going to be our relationship. It's about us first before anything else.
And I think we can extrapolate here as a father, as a mother, you're responsible for the child you bring into the world. You tame that child, you're forever responsible for them. As a teacher, I'm assuming you would say the same
Absolutely.
thing, correct?
Here it deserves like a discussion by itself, where um, the independent of your student and your child start, and you are actually watching it and decline your authority a little bit. This is a big, big art of parenting. Many times people find it very, very difficult. um, that's create huge tension many, many times when you have a child, a girl come and takes him, and a lot of the Jewish stories about Schwiegerste and the son-in-law or the daughter-in-law are coming from the inability and the lack of flexibility to understand that at a certain point, our job as teachers or parents is taking a backseat, and they continue with their journey. So I want to make this clear, because yes, we are responsible for everything that we gave our children, but usually with the responsibility comes the need to take ownership. And this by itself is a very difficult concept. Like, to take ownership for a person who is grown up, a person who has his own direction. Sometimes it's very different from your direction. So yes, we have full responsibility, but the art of life, I believe, for teachers and students, and sometimes I saw this like lines are blurred, is to know I gave everything I could. Now it's the time of my son, my daughter, my student to take responsibility and ownership for himself.
Rabbi, I want to conclude with a quote from the Little Prince. Really, that reminds me of you. I One of the reasons I love you is because of your childlike character, and I think that you remember very well what it was like to be a child, and you bring it forward in terms of your approach to
I hope
chinuch.
I matured
In the
since
Little
then.
Prince, you have a childlike character, but also a very mature one. So there's a quote in The Little Prince which reads as follows, and I just want you to comment on it. All grown-ups were once children, but only a few of them remember it.
My favorite one. My
Right?
favorite one. And it's not easy to remember it because many people think they progress over life, and they do in many areas. But there is something so pure in being a child that you should never forget. And there is another quote which is well related to what you say when he said, I also cannot see through the walls. I guess I got older. This is such like a sad, a painful, and very true um, acceptance. What happened to us as we get older? We stop seeing the invisible. And in education, if you don't see the invisible, you are in the wrong business. Our job is always just to see the invisible, not to be impressed too much with the boy or the girl or the child in front of you, but to see deeper. What is the potential over there, and to nourish and to nurture this potential more than what you see, which sometimes is very obnoxious, by the way.
Do you remember what you were like when you were little, very little, 2 years old, 3 years
Four
old?
years old, I do remember. My
What were you like? What were you like as a kid?
I think I was very curious. I think I was privileged to grow up. It's very interesting. I grew up with my parents. I was the firstborn. At the time, I didn't know that I'm the miracle of surviving the Holocaust. Um, I had in the house my great grandparents. I think I told you once that my mother lost her parents in the Holocaust, but her grandparents came to Israel in the 30s before the Holocaust, and therefore, when she came to Israel, uh, her grandparents became her parents. Um, so I grew up among very special people, very special people. Again, today I know to appreciate it in a very different way. These are people who lost their children in the Holocaust. I never felt it
Yes.
that they were like sad or anything like this. They at the time that I stayed at home, my great grandfather told me story that I still remember the hugs from my grandmother, great grandmother, um, and I remember it from a very young age. I do remember. I do remember. How do I know that I was in this age? Because I remember perfectly the day that my mother came with my sister, who is 3 years younger than me. I do remember it perfectly well. I can tell you about her like baby cart and the side and the big wheels of the beginning of the 60s. So I do remember things from, I would say, 3 years old.
Was your mother the type of woman who was conscious of your
Very
personality,
much
of your
so.
character?
My mother,
She was.
שתחיה עד 120,
Amen.
yeah,
She's still
Baruch
with us.
Hashem,
Yes.
one of the smartest ladies I know. She had a very strong sense of people and understand life, and with everything that she went through, amazing. And with my father, they formed a very strong educational background and nurturing um, atmosphere and house for all the four children they have.
Rabbi, I've asked AI to compose a poem having to do with the Parsha Vayikra. By the way, Agav Urcha, as they say in Aramaic, just by the way, I read a poem the other day to a guest from AI, and I thought it was an excellent poem. And the response was, it's very
Oh,
hollow.
wow.
That's what the person
Oh,
said to me. It's very hollow. Yeah, it's very clear that it was written by a robot, you know? So there's a lot of different responses to
you
AI
know,
in the poetry.
next
But this
time
one,
do the following. Take, I don't know what kind of AI you use, but today you have the Gemini, you have the cloud, you have all kind of other. Give like one AI poem to another one and ask him his opinion for it.
it's a great idea. I'll do that. Great idea. See, we're having fun with AI. I told you we would. Okay, the poem reads as follows. In a desert of stars, a prince once roamed, seeking meaning far from his home. Through planets of adults with hearts grown cold, he found what was precious, that it could not be sold. A rose so tender, a secret so deep, the bond he had promised a vow to keep. And so he learned from a fox's wise call that the essence of love is unseen by us all. Vayikra, whispers from ancient scrolls of offerings made to heal our souls, grain, burnt flesh, or fragrant incense, each act of devotion, a bridge to the presence. But in the heart of a prince so small and pure is a lesson of love that forever endures. What's essential is hidden not in what we see, but in giving our heart to set our spirit free. A flower, a rose, a fleeting exchange. The prince's heart grew despite the strange. For every offering, whether big or small, in a message that love must stand tall. In Vayikra, we give with intention and grace, just as the prince sought to cherish each face. Our offerings, like his rose, are tender and true. We're forever responsible for the love that we strew. So, like the prince, we learn to behold that the value of sacrifice is not in the gold, it's in the heart's offering, silent and deep, a promise to cherish, a vow we must keep. For what is essential, both in love and in prayer, is to see with the heart and tenderly care. As the prince found his peace in the stars up above, we find our own peace in the offering of
You
love.
know what? I wouldn't call
I
it
like it.
hollow. I actually think he hit upon the most important thing that we discussed today. It's not hollow. It sounds less human. Let's put it this way. But the
Okay, fair enough.
ideas and it's quite interesting. He actually hit on most buttons of this parsha in the book.
Rabbi, in conclusion, as we prepare for the parsha for Pesach, which is not too far away, I'm just curious which Haggadot you study from. The one that I really like is Eli Wiesel's. It's fascinating, and it speaks to Tikkun Olam, repairing the
I
world. What
use
do
the
you
regular
use?
Haggadah, actually the most beloved Haggadah I have. I got it at the present to my bris because you don't have to send me Mazel Tov, but at the end of this week I'm going to. I have my birthday, my Jewish birthday. So it was very appropriate to bring to my bris that happened in the middle of Pesach, Haggadah Shel Pesach. And I still use it. I'm not going to tell you how many years later, but I love the stains of wine. I love sometimes the crumbles of the matzah between the pages.
Right.
It has no perush. It's actually it's for children, so there are many pictures of children, and I still love this agada.
I told you about the machloket between I guess I would argue true bibliophiles, those who like their books to be unstained, for their pages not to be folded, and then there's perhaps less so. I don't know. This was a machloket between my father and myself. God bless his soul. I like the wine stains too. I'm fascinated by it. And when I took a look at some of the pictures from the Geniza in Egypt, and you see some of the documents, obviously many which are parched and so old, but you can sometimes see writings on the side of the page. And I thought, there's that character who was studying this piece. I can see his imagery in my mind,
I think that I told you that about 150 years ago, when Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, the admired Rosh Yeshiva, who wrote a book that actually revolutionized the way yeshiva guys are learning the Talmud. He came to the yeshiva of Gur, which were Hasidim. Like to welcome him, they give him a gift. What was the gift? His book ripped apart, and he said this is the best gift I ever got, because it shows you that
Awesome. Great
people
story.
actually learn it, like steig over it, and I think it's the same idea. Like,
Geschmack.
books are not to stay clean; they have to be they have to be stained.
So my father would not have agreed with you. I came back from Israel. I was in yeshiva in Sanhedria, and I brought back my Gemara, and it was not in great shape. And he was actually very
Okay,
upset
that's
with me.
another way. People are
He-
different.
to each their own, right? To each their own. Okay, I want to thank Rabbi. I want to thank you for an excellent job here today. I'm so excited about heading into Vayikra and the discussion about Karbanot, because I think there's so much that needs to be discussed, and for people to get clarification on what we mean when we talk about a sacrifice to God. And I think you did an outstanding job today. So thank you so
Sure,
much for
and
that. Excellent,
maybe next
excellent.
week we are going to explore the idea of chametz, which is common to Pesach and to the korbanot, because no korban, except of one that maybe we'll talk about, can bring chametz. So maybe we'll try to delve into this strange concept of like being so careful about chametz.
Very good. I made a note. Thank you to all of our viewers and to our listeners. You can find the show on YouTube, on Spotify, on Podbean, and all the major social media outlets. Please feel free to comment, to send us any questions or just your thoughts. And we're very open to being critiqued. So if you love the show, fantastic. We'd like to hear that. But if you have ideas as to how we can make it better, be in touch with us. And our emails you can see on the screen here. I want to wish everybody well in our community, in the Jewish world, and in Israel, and in the world abroad, because it's so important that we see ourselves as citizens of the world. Rabbi, any concluding
I
remarks?
enjoyed very much our discussion today. I would highly, highly recommend, even for the adults among us, the people who got older, go to the Little Prince. I think you can still draw lots of wisdom, and as you say, like it's the youth fountain of the books. So it's worthwhile your time, no questions.
By the way, for your own edification, as one who loves books, I went on the internet after studying the book last night, because I like antiques a lot. I like old books. I have one here from 1600s. And I found on eBay that there's the first edition, and I think it cost about $6,000.
I'm not like, I don't know how to appraise books, but I think if I would have the money, I would buy it,
I would
because
choose.
it is a classic, absolutely classic.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again. We wish you a beautiful week, and Shabbat Shalom until we meet again. Am Yisrael Chai. Be proud to be a Jew. And Sei gesund, as they say in Yiddish. We will be with you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.